What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. It is the 2022 Tailteann Cup Predictions. And here we go. The Tailteann Cup is here. The long-anticipated wait, the wait for this tournament, the wait for this trophy is finally over. The build-up for the Tailteann Cup has certainly been interesting, to say the least. Obviously, over the last couple of years, you had COVID that certainly played its part. It delayed the progress of this competition. It delayed the competition coming alive and all the rest. But here we are, after a long wait, the Tailteann Cup is here. And you know what? I'm delighted to see it's here because I think this competition has been needed for quite a long time for second tier competitions. I think the likes of Division 3 and Division 4 teams have been needing a competition like this for a while because, look, hopefully the competition gets marketed right. Hopefully it is a tournament that everyone can be, can watch, can get up for. Hopefully more games will be shown on GAA Go. And whilst it mightn't be, the most entertaining, it mightn't have the best players or anything like that, I think it is going to be very, very interesting, to say the least. And you have some big historic counties in here. You have All-Ireland winners. You have two of, the most, or sort of, two of the most successful counties in the Ulster Championship in terms of All-Ireland wins meeting on the opening round in the northern section. So that certainly is going to be an interesting one and certainly is one worth discussing. So, yeah, look, we're going to be here to preview the Tailteann Cup. We're going to be giving my predictions. We're going to be discussing this weekend's games as well. You've got Wicklow versus Waterford. You also have the other big clash, which is completely skipped my brain now. Oh, Wexford and Offaly, that was the one. So we will be previewing those two as well. We're going to be discussing All-Stars as well. Who will be winning Tailteann Cup All-Stars and who will be the very first winner of the 2022 Tailteann Cup. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you're an existing subscriber, smash the like button. It's the Tailteann Cup preview and predictions. Let's do this. And as mentioning there in the intro, the Tailteann Cup, look, it has certainly split opinion amongst a lot of people. And certainly the draw is definitely one that, in my opinion, look, I don't think there should be a southern and northern section. It should just be an open draw. I'm not exactly sure as to why they've, gone and complicated things even further. I know there is that argument there that you could say, well, look, if Antrim ended up playing Waterford, for example, in the opening round of the Tailteann Cup, you'd have either an Antrim or Waterford who'd be travelling from one side of the country to the other, be very, hard on fans, all the rest. So I understand it from that point of view, but I do think at the same time, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, especially in an open draw. And I do think an open draw should have been how it's done. And, any Division 4 team should have got home advantage. I think that should have been the most fairest way possible. But as you'll see on screen there, this is the draw for the Tailteann Cup. Hopefully it is visible enough there. I just pulled this image off of Wikipedia. So you can see there on the left-hand side, you have the preliminary round of the southern section, which is Wexford against Offaly and Wicklow against Waterford. The two of those, or the winner of both of those two ties, which is happening this weekend, will end up playing each other. You also have Carlow, Tipperary and Laois versus Westmeath on the southern section of the draw. New York get an automatic bye into the quarterfinals. I have seen a couple of people speak out about New York getting an automatic bye. Does it ruin the integrity of the competition, all the rest? Look, in my personal opinion, I think it's just great to see New York in there. You can put them in the semi-finals for all I care. Just once they're in the competition, I think that's the main thing in my opinion. And great to see them in the in the quarterfinals. Yes, they probably should be in the preliminary round if you're going to start nitpicking. But look, we all know the logistics of New York playing in the, in Gaelic football. They're actually going to be playing all their games in Ireland as well. So they're going to be, traveling over to Ireland for a first competitive game, possibly in their history. Don't quote me on that one. I could be wrong there. But great to see New York in there. On the southern section of the draw, which is at the top of the screen, you'll see it there. Round 1, Longford against Fermanagh, Leitrim against Antrim, Sligo against London, and Cavan versus Down. Now, the quarterfinal draws, although on Wikipedia it makes it look out here that the draw has already been done there, but it actually hasn't been. The draws will be done on a round-by-round basis. So, for example, New York could end up playing any of the southern section teams there, for example. But hopefully that uncomplicates things just a little bit in regards to the Tailteann Cup. Gavin O'Reilly here says, I love the irony of how the most southern team, London, being in the north. Yeah, I suppose you could argue the case there a little bit. New York have 3 football leagues, is what Dylan Duffy says there. So it's going to be interesting, most definitely, to preview the games. And look, I suppose what we'll do first of all is we will run through this weekend's matches, the 2 games that are taking place, Wicklow and Waterford and Wexford and Offaly. And look, it's great to have the games back. Great to have Wicklow and Waterford. It's kind of funny. I was listening to the RTE GAA podcast during the week, and instead of previewing the games, they decided to spend about 20 to 25 minutes giving out about how the competition could be marketed, giving out about the fact that it won't, make people money and all the rest. Just very, very little strange, rather than, actually previewing the game. So very, very odd. But look, we're here to preview the games, and Wicklow and Waterford is the opening one to discuss because it is on the preliminary side of the draw in the southern section. And by the way, if you do get confused at any point in terms of how the draw is structured or how it works, feel free to ask a question in the comments. I'll answer it in the best way that I can. Or, if I'm making a mistake here somewhere along the way, feel free to let me know, because there are some complications in here that can make things a little bit confusing. But do feel free to let me know in the comments down below. So Wicklow and Waterford going up on Saturday. The recent head-to-head between these two in their last 5 meetings. 3 wins for Wicklow, a draw in there as well. Waterford with a victory from their last 5 games against Wicklow, and that victory came in 2018, I should say. Look, Wicklow have the home advantage. In Ockram, you would have to fancy Wicklow. Let's be perfectly honest. They are a Division 3 team, they got relegated to Division 4, where they were playing this year in Division 3. They were a Division 3 team last year as well. Very competitive in there. Probably could have stayed up, a little bit unlucky. I think they got relegated with 5 points, which in a lot of seasons would actually potentially keep you up in Division 3. And whilst they did have Shawnee Furlong retire before a ball was kicked this year, they have done quite well, in my opinion. And I think they maybe were a little bit unlucky. And I'd have them as contenders to get out of Division 4 next year. Make no mistake about that. You have Kevin Quinn, who scored 5-9 this year. Mark Kenny with 21 points. Owen Darcy is a player who I have been praising quite a lot in recent podcasts and all the rest. And Wicklow, whilst they were comfortably beaten by Meath in the Leinster quarterfinals, they will take a bit of praise off the fact that they put 5 past Laois. They got a goal against Meath as well. They've actually scored 12 goals in 9 games this year. So Wicklow, in my opinion, are a decent side, maybe a bit of a team to watch. Could they be an underdog in this competition? It's hard to see them past round 1, but I do think in this preliminary round they should have enough to get past Waterford. And look, that's no disrespect to Waterford. We know they are a very predominantly hurling county. They're one of the lowest scorers in all 4 divisions of the National Football League. And look, what I would say about Waterford is they have been very competitive in almost every game they've played this year, which you have to give them credit for. There may be some counties in Division 4, like, for example, Carlow, were on the receiving end of some absolute hammerings and tough results, but Waterford were generally competitive, and maybe, without having seen them play this year, maybe a couple of those games they might have felt like they could have won, and maybe we'd be looking at Waterford in a different light. So I wouldn't exactly say they've zero chance in this game. I think they do have a strong chance. I don't think there's much between a lot of these teams. And I do think Waterford will push Wicklow quite close. Jason Curry has scored 115 this year. Dara Corcoran with 111 in there as well. But as I said, I think Wicklow at home in Ockram, tough place to go, having got that big win over Laois in the Leinster Championship as well, which will give them a bit of confidence. I would suspect that they will do enough to come through this one, in my opinion. Sir Klopp says, are the 2 games this weekend live on RTE? I don't believe they are, but I do believe one game is, I believe the Wexford Offaly game is on GAA Go. So that's the way it's going to be there, because obviously there is a lot of hurling action this weekend. So I think that's getting the the TV slots this weekend, you could say. He also says here, Mr. Klopp, he says, personally think there should be round robin with 2 groups. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have liked a group of 4, 2 groups of 4, maybe 3 groups of 4, if that makes sense. Round robin, I'm not sure. Like if it was 5 and 6 in one side and the other, you could have a lot of dead rubbers. Although a lot of these teams are very competitive, so I'm not sure. But I do think group stages would have been fair there, in my opinion. Wexford and Offaly is the other game this weekend, and what would we say is, well, these two already played each other this year in the Leinster Championship. Wexford with, I wouldn't say a famous result, because, Wexford at one moment in time were, leaps and bounds really above Offaly football, especially probably although Offaly actually had a fairly good team back then as well in the sort of late 2000s. But it was a big win for Wexford because they were going in as massive underdogs. Offaly had been very competitive in Division 2, nearly took the head off Meath and nearly took the head off Cork as well. Very unlucky not to stay in Division 2. And it was a big shock. Even though Wexford were at home, they ended up beating Offaly 115 to 112, with Ben Brosnan scoring 1-9 in the game. Absolutely rolling back the years. A Benjamin Button type performance there from Mr. Ben Brosnan. But look, I would fancy Offaly. They didn't have any of the McNamees in that game, which I wasn't aware of. Only, found that information out when I looked back on sort of, the teams that played that day. So both Niall and Rory McNamee coming in should make a huge difference. I mean, Niall McNamee's been fantastic for Offaly this year, scoring 117. Anton Sullivan is another player to watch out for there with 210 this year. And as I said about Wexford, they're a strange one, really, because I do think they have a good team, and I think they do have the capabilities of putting in a performance here and potentially shocking Offaly. I really do. But at the same time, they just have so much inconsistency. They were down near the bottom of Division 4, never really in the race for promotion. You think back to last year when they beat Wicklow and, put up a good showing against the Dubs. Like, they have good players, but it just seems to be a lot of inconsistency for Shane Roach's men. And I think with Offaly having sort of having that defeat against Wexford, I think they'll want to bounce back. They'll want to right that wrong, and I think they will. And I think they will come through Wexford by 5 points. Matchtags Kid says, what did I miss? Just the opening 2 games, but you can always rewind the time, my friend. Happy days. But what we'll do is, rather than, I suppose, preview and, like, I'm not going to go through every game here on this image here in big detail, because we're going to have to preview these games probably next week or whatever. So I don't want to end up repeating myself. But what I am going to discuss really is just who I think can come through their respective sections. So who will come through the southern section, who will come through the northern section, and sort of give my general inkling into some of these games. So according to my predictions anyway, you would have Offaly going up against Wicklow. I think Offaly, if they get through Wexford, the momentum that would give them playing away from home, I'm not too sure where that one would be played, who would have home advantage. Maybe Wicklow would have home advantage with the fact that they're now a Division 4 side. But I would think Offaly would have enough there, and they would have the momentum to come through Wicklow. But as I said, Wicklow are certainly no mean feat, so they could cause a bit of a surprise there. You have Carlow and Tipperary there, which is the other game. Carlow have very much been in free fall this year, or free fall the past few years, really. Tipperary have been far more consistent this year, and unfortunately for Carlow, you had that whole Carlow Rising, sort of topic there, and everyone was talking about that a couple of years ago. But unfortunately, they are very much doing the opposite now, with a lot of players having retired and all the rest. Colm Hutton would be a player to watch out for, 118 for Carlow this year. But Tipperary surely having come through having come through the Division 4, having won the Munster Championship a couple of seasons ago, you would certainly have to fancy Tipperary to come through that one. And I am wearing a Tipperary jersey as well, so we'll be all aboard the Tipperary hype train in this Tailteann Cup. Laois and Westmeath. Now, that is, I suppose, another one. There is a lot of repeat pairings in this draw. There are a lot of sides that are very familiar with each other. And I suppose it would be that way, given the fact that there is a lot of Division 3 and 4 teams in this. So, Wexford and Offaly playing each other again. Laois and Westmeath have played each other on numerous occasions in the last couple of years in the Leinster Championship, Division 3, Division 4 finals, all the rest. And they get a crack at each other again in the Tailteann Cup. But look, it's been an absolute disaster year for Laois. Very poor year by their standards. I mean, just one win in their last 7 games tells you how difficult it has been for the Laois men. 5 losses in that time as well. So Westmeath certainly going in as favourites, having put 215 past Kildare as well. That will give them a lot of confidence. Gary Walsh will be the man to watch there from a Laois perspective. 429 in total from him this year. John Heslin with 3 goals, 42 points for Westmeath. So he's been brilliant. But look, I would tip Westmeath as one of the favourites for this competition. I think the only problem I have with Westmeath, and it's actually the same with a lot of counties in this tournament, there's a lot of counties in here that have quality, have great players, have produced big performances at different times. When they play bigger opposition, they tend to raise their levels and give a good game. But then there's a lot of inconsistency at times. And I think that's ultimately why some of the counties in here have found themselves in this tournament and not in the qualifiers. I think Westmeath are better than Division 3. I think Cavan are better than Division 3. I think if Down got their act together, they could be in with a chance of Division 2. They could get up there. I mean, obviously you can't have everyone in Division 1 and 2, but I think they could be in there. There are some counties in Division 2 that, you could argue could drop out in the next couple of years, the likes of a Meath and a Cork, if they don't get their act together. So, yeah, it's just been a lot of inconsistency, and that has been the problem for Westmeath on the on that sort of side of the draw. In terms of New York, who obviously, as you can see there, get an automatic buy-in into the quarterfinals. There would be a redraw then, obviously, for the quarterfinals in terms of the 2 different sections. So you would have New York in the quarterfinals. You would have Tipperary, Westmeath, and Offaly, according to my predictions there. I mean, can New York do anything in the quarterfinals? I don't know. You just don't know. It'd be very, very interesting to keep an eye on them. I mean, Adrian Varley was unbelievable, I thought, against Sligo in that game. And that performance will certainly give them a lot of confidence. It will be certainly different for them. They're going to be traveling over here rather than counties traveling over there. And they're going to end up playing a team here that I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know if they've ever played any of Westmeath, Tipperary, or the other county in there, in a competitive game before. I'm not too sure if they have, to be perfectly honest. I don't think they've played Offaly before, so that's what certainly makes it very interesting. But I would, to be honest, fancy, whatever way the pairing of the draw goes, I would fancy Westmeath to come through that southern section of the draw, to be perfectly honest, because, I do think that Westmeath are just better than, they're better than Tipperary, in my opinion, better than Offaly. But as I said before, Westmeath's inconsistency could cause problems. Could Connor Sweeney and, Mikey O'Shea, Mark Russell of Tip manage to find a way through there? I mean, Tipperary, won that Munster Championship a couple of years ago. Their team has changed. Offaly, could you see some of those under 20 lads come in there, like Jack Bryant and Cormac Egan? You could see Offaly doing something, and I definitely think they're a team that could be dark horses. But I am going to back Westmeath to come down that side of the draw, which could be very interesting. Plenty of comments coming in there. Sir Klopp says quarterfinals, in my opinion, for Fermanagh versus Antrim, Sligo versus Cavan, Offaly versus New York, Tipperary versus Westmeath. So there you go. That could certainly be some interesting games in there. Make no mistake about that. I suppose we'll have a look at the northern section of the draw there. So you can see Longford, Fermanagh, Leitrim, Antrim, Sligo, London, Cavan and Down. And we'll start with Cavan and Down because, I mean, it is the heavyweight clash in some respects of the Tailteann Cup in round one, because in terms of history, in terms of honours, in terms of trophies won, probably is the two most successful counties in this competition. Cavan have won Cavan and Down both have the record for the joint most amount of All Irelands out of counties coming out of Ulster. Obviously, Cavan haven't won one since the 1950s, but plenty of dodgy All Irelands in the 30s and 40s is how they've managed to find their way into this list. But I mean, speaking of Down, first of all, because they're a bit of a mess at the minute, aren't they? I mean, they're a bit all over the place. You have players speaking out against the county. Barry O'Hagan was saying after the Monaghan game that he didn't care about the Tailteann Cup. He's since reversed his opinion because he was on the he was at the launch of the Tailteann Cup in Croke Park, so quickly changed his mind on that one. You obviously had Eugene Brannigan speaking out about Down as well. Caelan Mooney's opted out, and I actually seen got a very heavily injured, I think, in a club game there at the weekend. So certainly wish quick recoveries to him. But a lot of Down players opting out, a lot of problems behind the scenes. And look, there's two sides to every story. If a lot of players are opting out and there's messing going on, probably tells you that there is issues behind the scenes with county boards or management. I just think Down at the minute are, from looking at it from an outsider's point of view, they just look, rotten from top to bottom, to be perfectly honest. And it's a shame because, I think everyone would love to see a huge traditional county like Down be competitive. And you know what? I would have loved to see them go on a bit of a run in this competition just for the supporters and the fans. They haven't seen Down win a game this year. They haven't won a game since 2020. So it'd be nice to see them get a result, but unfortunately they just happen to draw the biggest county or the favourites for this tournament on the opening day and away from home as well. And Cavan may be getting a little bit lucky with the fact that, well, not lucky, but it's just by the way of how it is, the fact that Cavan coming up from Division 4, Down coming down from Division 2, so Cavan obviously get the home advantage. But look, if Down are going to do anything, Andy Gilmore will have to be the man. 119 this year, Pat Havern with 213. But as we very well know, Cavan are the team to be in this competition. Make no mistake about that. I mean, after that performance against Donegal and how well they played, scoring 16 points, should have won that on another occasion. They were a little bit unlucky with the 2 goals that they conceded. Obviously, it wasn't like they were well worth goals. And so, Cavan should be the team to beat. The problem with Cavan is, again, could there be a bit of inconsistency in there? We've seen them in the league not look particularly brilliant, but I would give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think they should have enough to comfortably see off Down, in my opinion. You have Leitrim and Antrim, Sligo and London. We'll run through these ones a little bit quicker, I suppose. But Sligo and London, first of all, I do think Sligo are one of the most attacking teams in the country, based on statistics and all the rest. And actually, to be fair to them, whilst Leitrim got absolutely rolled over by Galway in that opening round of the Connacht Championship, they gave a good showing to Roscommon. And although that was a 12-point victory for the Rossies, I did hear that game was a lot closer than people expected. And most certainly for Sligo, they can take a lot of positives from how they've played so far this year. Sean Carboy, Niall Murphy, 2 of the players to watch out for. Could we see some of the under-20 players come in who, were a part of Sligo's side that reached the All-Ireland under-20 semi-finals? Liam Gavahan has been top class from a London perspective, but you would very much expect Sligo to come through there. So I am going to tip them to come through by 5 points. You have Leitrim and Antrim. Now, that's a very, very hard one to call. Very hard one to call. Both sides coming in on similar circumstances, having been trashed on their opening day out in the... it wasn't Leitrim's opening day out because they beat London, but Leitrim obviously getting demolished by Galway. Antrim suffered a very heavy beating as well, it must be said, by Cavan. It's a hard one to call. Like, I think when you look at Leitrim's players, they have better players in terms of Ryan O'Rourke and Keith Byrne, one of the top scorers in the country. Few under 20 lads coming in there as well. Andy Moran clearly has a lot of lads buying in. I mean, Emma Mulligan's back in the the team as well. Antrim are very well coached, though, aren't they? And Enda McGinley has gotten them, he's gotten a lot out of those lads. And you wonder, will there be a response from that heavy defeat to Cavan? Because I do think they're a lot better than what that performance suggested. But you know what? I'm going to back Leitrim at home. Might be a surprise, but I just think they'll narrowly come through that one. And I suppose the question is, have Antrim overachieved a little bit in Division 3? Because when you look through their players and their team, they've a lot of older lads in there, like Conor Murray, Rory McCann. I don't know if they have lots of quality. And I just think Leitrim at home as well will be able to produce the surprise result there. Longford and Fermanagh is the last one on the northern section there. Again, this is such a hard one to call, to be perfectly honest. So what I would say is I'm certainly not going to claim to know absolutely everything about every county. I mean, you're obviously, basing on what you have seen, and, you're looking at statistics, and you're looking at, you're doing your research into who's been scoring, who's been playing well, match reports, all the rest. And this one is a very hard one to call, to be perfectly honest, because both sides are very similar, finished in very similar positions in Division 3. I was just watching the Frankfurt Rangers game there, but yeah, Longford and Fermanagh have been I've completely lost my my train of thought there, but both sides finished in similar positions in Division 3. But whilst Longford have been very good with introducing lads like Jack Duggan, and Darren Gallagher has done very well, the sort of key player in these two sides has to be Sean Quigley. 434 is exceptional. And what? I think Fermanagh are going to be a very, surprise package in this competition, in my opinion, because I really do think they could cause a shock. When you look at the northern section of the draw, as I said before, the teams I think that will come through this section will be Sligo, Fermanagh, Cavan, and Leitrim. I think Fermanagh could beat Sligo or Leitrim. I do. I think they can have either one of them. And they beat Cavan last year as well in the league. So, Fermanagh could definitely be a team there that could cause a shock. I like the look of Kieran Corrigan, Conal Jones, Ryan Jones in around the middle. Darren McGurn's a good young player who's come through there in the last couple of seasons. So Fermanagh could certainly be a county that could have a shock. James LeBron says, down GAA in a sorry state. I'd have more hope for their hurling team, in my opinion, is what Mr. LeBron says there. Sharon says, down, I've had a bad league campaign, but I actually think they will step it up and make it difficult for Cavan. But I don't think so. Yeah, look, I think they certainly will make it a close game. I think they certainly will be competitive. But whether they have enough to come through, we'll obviously have to wait and see. We had a few technical issues there. I don't know what happened, but yeah, in terms of anyway, the four counties who I think over on the in the northern section of the draw, look, I am going to back Cavan. I think Cavan surely would have enough to get past either a Leitrim or an Antrim, and then Fermanagh is going to be the sticky one there. But again, Ricey McManaman, who played a big part for Fermanagh last year when they beat Cavan. He was obviously the manager. He's actually now part of the Cavan backroom team, and he's obviously left his role with Fermanagh. So, I'm going to back Cavan. Whilst they have been inconsistent throughout the league, I know they came through the Division 4 handily enough, but I do think a lot of them games were a lot closer than people expected. And, you look at Division 3 last year, but, they've nothing else to play for, though. Maybe in the league they were holding themselves out for the championship a little bit. But I do think you'd have to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I don't think there is anything really else to play for after this. It's not like they'll be saving themselves for championship further down the line. And another thing we're pointed out actually as well is the winner of the Tailteann Cup will get an automatic spot in the qualifiers next year, provided they obviously don't come through Division 3. So at least that would take the edge off for either a Cavan or a Westmeath. Whichever one of them two, in my opinion, come through the Tailteann Cup. that would give them a little bit more of an incentive and take the pressure a little bit off Division 3. So yeah, according to my predictions then, it would be a Cavan and Westmeath final in the 2022 Tailteann Cup. Maybe a bit of an obvious prediction. Look, I do think there are dark horses in there. I think Fermanagh could certainly be a team that I could see causing a few surprises. I think Offaly could cause a shock or two as well if they start to build a bit of momentum and get some wins behind their belt. Sligo, yeah, look, I mean, I obviously seen Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman. Was listening to him on a different podcast there during the week, and he was talking about, and obviously he's been on the show a couple of times. He believes Sligo will win the competition, so we'll certainly have to get his opinion on that at some point. But I think, look, they could be close. They could be close, but I'm just not too sure if defensively they're quite there. And I think, as long as Cavan have their heads screwed on, they should come through there. But yeah, the final, obviously a hard one to predict at this moment in time. We'll certainly know a lot more when we get to see these teams actually play each other. In Croke Park, both sides have played there, obviously, in recent times. Westmeath played there in the semi-finals versus Kildare. And he did also have Cavan play there in the Division 4 final as well. I'm going to back Cavan. It's a tough one, really, but I just think all around the pitch, they have too much quality. Raymond Galligan, top class keeper, arguably, in my opinion, one of the best goalkeepers in the country. Padraig Faulkner is an exceptional fullback. Paddy Lynch, who's come into that team, looks very, very good as well. Like, you could argue the case that Cavan are maybe even stronger than that 2020 team. Maybe they just got a little unlucky against Donegal. Like, I really do feel if Cavan were in the qualifiers that they could cause a shock or two. The inconsistencies in there do worry me. And again, for Westmeath, they haven't had their best year in total this year. So it is a tough one to call, but I'm going to narrowly back Cavan, I think, to win the Tailteann Cup. I think they do have the best players, the best team, possibly the best manager as well. But again, that isn't always how sport works. Sometimes you'll see teams with, who get complacent, and, there could be a bit of complacency in there, but I'm going to go with Cavan to win the 2022 Tailteann Cup. So yeah, let me know in the comments live or even afterwards, who do you think will win the Tailteann Cup in your opinion? Sir Klopp says Antrim and Offaly underdogs, don't sleep on Sligo either. Yeah, Sligo definitely could be in the conversation. Don't think Leitrim mightn't be far away as well if they can, start to build a bit of momentum under Andy Moore. And like, as I said, I think a lot of these counties are very, very close to each other. I think a lot of these, you could make a case for a lot of them. And that's what's going to make this competition very, very exciting, in my opinion. I suppose what we'll do now is we'll run through some all-stars for the Tailteann Cup. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, obviously I haven't seen a lot of these teams play, so some of these predictions are more sort of just off the cuff. Look, it is a bit of a crack. It is a bit of a crack. It is a bit of crack. It's a bit of a laugh. Don't take these too serious. And look, maybe there might be some players in here that you might disagree with, but if you do, let me know in the comments down below. Sir Klopp says as well, Cavan always do better as underdogs. The fact they're everyone's favourites tells me they'll get caught out by Sligo. Yeah, I mean, that's the worry. The only thing I would say is, though, because there isn't a championship looming anytime soon, I think they will take it serious because they've nothing else to play for. It's not like players have opted out or anything. You've nothing else to save yourself for. And something tells me they've sort of, they've waited to peak until this moment. So we'll have to wait and see there. But yeah, all stars, as I said. I tell you what, goalkeeper first of all. I mean, it has to be Mr. Raymond Galligan, doesn't it? Because he is, as I said before, one of the best goalkeepers in the country. He's the highest scoring goalkeeper this season as well, in terms of if you were to count up, points from 45s and all the rest. So I think he's exceptional in around the back. So, or exceptional between the six, makes big saves as well. And obviously, provided my prediction is that I think Cavan are going to come through here, it's going to be no big surprise that there is going to be plenty of Cavan lads on this list. In terms of the right cornerback, I've gone for Kevin Maguire of Westmeath. From when I watched a good bit of Westmeath last year, and I thought Kevin Maguire was very good. Westmeath have had a couple of defensive issues this year, so we'll have to wait and see on this one. Again, trying to predict some of the defenders is quite difficult because, at least when you're, picking the forwards, you can look at how much players have scored. You know a bit more about the forwards, but the defenders is a bit more tricky in my opinion. But I have got Kevin Maguire in at right cornerback. In terms of the fullback, again, another one for me that should be unanimous enough in Padraig Faulkner. Believe he won an All-Star back in 2020 alongside Raymond Gallagher as well. Had a very good game against Donegal as well, in my opinion. And I think he's just an exceptional fullback for this Cavan side. So I think I'll put him in there at fullback. In terms of right cornerback, you have another Cavan man. And I do promise I haven't turned into a Cavan man or anything like that. I'm sure if John McMahon is watching this, he will. He must be popping the champagne at the minute, but maybe he isn't. But anyway, yeah, we'll go with Killian Brady at right cornerback there. Again, another top class cornerback in there, great at getting forward. He's obviously been coming back from injuries, so maybe that might be a bit of a risky one, but we've got Mr. Killian Brady in there at right cornerback. In terms of the half back line, then we have Jamie Ganood of Westmeath. Got himself a very lovely goal against Kildare, so he gets in for that reason alone. You have Dara Cummins of Sligo, who gets in at number 5. And then in the number 6 is an Offaly man of Niall Derby. Now, again, some of these predictions here for the half-back line and the full-back line, maybe I'm winging it a little bit, but, I didn't want to predict half a team because, that's no fun, really, is it? And look, Niall Derby, when I have watched a bit of Offaly at times and seen highlights, very experienced player in there. I believe I don't know if he's still the captain, but he was the captain of Offaly at one point. So I do think he's a very good wing back. And John Maughan, the Offaly manager, does have this Offaly side playing this attacking brand of football, which we love to see at different times. Moving into the midfield, a player that I think could be maybe a dark horse to potentially go on to win Tailteann Cup Player of the Year, if there is such an award, is Ray Connellan of Westmeath. And we have him in there, the first one of our midfielders. And I mean, this guy is a very, very good player. I mean, kicked 2 brilliant points against Westmeath. Remember watching him last year as well at different times. Kicked a superb point against Cork in that relegation playoff. Very, very good footballer. And if Westmeath are to do anything special in the Tailteann Cup, he'll certainly play a big, big part in it, in my opinion. The other midfielder is Jack Smith of Cavan. Was very impressed with him against Donegal. Kicked some brilliant points in that one as well. Was sort of dropping into the half forward line as well, sort of playing a role as an extra forward. And I think Jack Smith, very, very good footballer indeed for this Cavan side. So he gets in the midfield. Moving on to the forward line then, and I suppose looking at the number 10 first of all, and it is another Cavan man. No surprises there, but it is. I don't think I have the image for him, unfortunately. Forgot Mr. Gerard McKernan's image to put in here, but it is Gerard McKernan. Very. I mean, we know the talent of Gerard McKernan. Tall, rangy player, so physical on the ball, very hard to dispossess. Does get criticised from time to time, which I find a little bit harsh. I think he's just very good. Can slot a couple of points. Good at setting up goals as well. His all-round game is very good, and whether he's sometimes drifting into midfield, he does a lot of work around there as well. So and he's been one of Cavan's top scorers as well. So I think Gerard McKernan has to be in the conversation, in my opinion. Moving on to number 11, it is Anton Sullivan of Offaly. As I was saying earlier, he's had a very, very good season so far this year from an Offaly perspective. He scored 210 in total in the league, and he's played a super sub role at times as well, coming off the bench, but very experienced player. So we'll throw him in at number 11. Number 12 is Sean Carabine of Offaly, as I was saying before, or Sean Carabine of Sligo, I should say. As I was saying before, Sean Carabine has been excellent for Sligo this year, one of their top scorers in the league and championship. And as I said, as Sir Klopp was saying there earlier in the comments down below as well, you can't sleep on Sligo, and I think they'll definitely be in and around the mix. And Sligo have put up some big scores against teams as well. They beat London 319-19. They absolutely wiped the floor with Carlow as well. So you could see someone like Sean Carabine delivering for Sligo, and I thought he actually played very well against New York as well. He was one of the players who very much carried that Sligo side over the line. Moving into the full forward line, and in at number 13, it is John Heslin. As I said, 342 this year, which is outrageous figures, really. And he's been the shining light for this Westmeath side for a number of years. And as I said, I think Westmeath will go all the way to the final. I think they'll be very, very much in the mix to potentially win the competition. So, John Heslin, I think, very much has to get in the conversation, and so does Paddy Lynch. Paddy Lynch definitely has to get in here, because for me, he is another contender as well for, Tailteann Cup Player of the Year, because he's been absolutely outstanding for Cavan this year. 429 in total. In the first half against Donegal, he was virtually unplayable. Almost every chance, every kick was going over the bar. He just couldn't do anything wrong. He was going up against Brendan McCall, and he was turning them inside and out, sending them backwards and forwards. And Brendan McCall must have been dizzy after dealing with Paddy Lynch. They obviously switched it up in the second half and, changed it around. But I do think Paddy Lynch could be a serious, serious contender from a Cavan perspective. And Sean Quigley is the other one. Look, as I said, Sean Quigley has been, next level for Mana this year. I mean, 434 in total, 5 more than Paddy Lynch. Since he's come back into the side, he's been a breath of fresh air for this Fermanagh side. So talented, arguably one of the, arguably the most talented, forward in this team and possibly in this competition. And I think having him in this Fermanagh side, it could just give them that X factor that separates them between a lot of different counties. I know Tipperary have got a stalwart in Conor Sweeney, and I don't think he'll be a million miles away either. But I think Sean Quigley has been exceptional for Fermanagh this year and through the last couple of years. So I definitely think he'll get in the conversation. In terms of player of the competition, a hard one really. I'm going to go with Paddy Lynch though, and the main reason is because I have seen a lot of him play this year. Seen him in the Division 4 final, seen him in the Donegal and Antrim game, and I have been very impressed with him. And as I said, I do expect Cavan to come through this competition. Yes, they have had their inconsistencies, but I'm going to back them. And look, every time I seem to back Cavan, they seem to lose. I backed them to get out of Division 3 last year, got relegated. Backed them to get beat by Antrim. They absolutely demolished them. So if you're a Cavan man, this is probably a bad thing, to be honest. And maybe we should, definitely take these predictions with a pinch of salt, in my opinion. Sharon says Conor Sweeney could get an all-star as well if Tip get there. Definitely, yeah. I think Conor Sweeney could very well be in the mix. I think Luke Loughlin of Westmeath couldn't be too far away. Ronan O'Toole potentially as well. Who else is there? Noel Murphy of Sligo could be a potential dark horse. Maybe Noel McNamee of Offaly if he comes back from injury. So there's a lot of if, buts, and maybe certainly with this Tailteann Cup. But what we'll do is we'll throw the full team up on the screen right there, so you can go ahead and have a look. So as I said, Raymond Gallagher in goal, Kevin Maguire, Padraig Faulkner, Killian Brady, James Ganood, Dara Cummins of Sligo, Noel Darby of Offaly, a midfield of Ray Kennellan and James Smith. And then you've Gerard McKernan, Anton Sullivan, Sean Carabine, John Heslin, Paddy Lynch, and Sean Quigley. And as I said before, maybe I might be waffling a little bit with some of those defenders in there. But, I still wanted to put a team together just for a bit of crack, just for a bit of laugh. Sure, why not? Not everything has to be absolutely perfect, in my opinion. Bully Maguire does say Keith Byrne. It is a fair point. Keith Byrne is actually the top scorer coming into this competition. So I think he could have a chance, and it's one of them. So unfortunately, some players are going to miss out for the predictions, like Ryan O'Rourke. I suppose a lot depends on Leitrim, really, because I do think Leitrim will get past Antrim, in my opinion. Depends after that who they get in the quarterfinals. If they get a Cavan, that, you know, maybe then you wouldn't see him come through. But if they end up playing a Sligo or who else is in there? Sorry, it's late. It's late in the evening, so my mind's getting away from me here. But yeah. But look, he could definitely be in the mix. He could definitely be in the mix, and certainly could have a chance. And Leitrim, again, as I said, they're a county that I certainly won't rule out of this competition. If there's a team that could take a scalp, maybe it could be them. Sharon says, is Mead in it or are they in the qualifiers? They are in the qualifiers. So yeah, alongside the likes of Cork and all the rest. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that draw when it comes out. Well, look, listen, I suppose what we'll do is we will go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you do enjoy this content, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. And yeah, let me know your predictions for All Stars, predictions for player of the competition. Who do you think will win it? Who do you think will be, dark horses? As I said, I suppose to recap, I think Cavan will win the Tailteann Cup. I think they have too much quality in their team. Again, I think they'll be their biggest enemy if they don't come through and win it. I think they'll nearly end up having to beat themselves, to be honest, to not win this competition. And I think Paddy Lynch, with the form that he's been in this year, and with the fact that I do think Cavan will win the competition, I think he'll win the player of the competition. Dark horses, though, as I said, don't sleep on Fermanagh. Don't think they'll be a million miles away. Sligo and Leitrim could certainly have their say as well. And on the southern section of the draw, Offaly, with the fact that they have the preliminary round against Wexford, they'll then either play Wicklow or Waterford. Like, there's a chance for Offaly to build up a bit of momentum, put 2 wins together. If they get New York then in the next round, you would see them maybe putting 3 wins together. So there's a chance there for momentum, and momentum is always key. Winning breeds confidence, as they say. So yeah, look, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Cheers anyone who tuned in to the stream. And yeah, look, listen, let's hope the Tailteann Cup is a fantastic competition. Let's hope it's shown. Let's hope we get to watch it in more detail. And certainly we will be breaking down games through match reactions and podcasts and all the rest to try and cover this competition in the best way that we can. So yeah, we'll wrap this one up here. Hurling preview will be out tomorrow. There's definitely a lot of games to run through there. I'll have a former Galway All-Ireland winner on the podcast to run through the weekend's game. So make sure you tune in for that one tomorrow at 7:30. So yeah, and obviously plenty of reactions out at the weekend, although there's a lot of sport on this weekend, so there is a lot to keep up with. But yeah. Anyway, cheers anyone who tuned in. My name's Aaron.